and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who would never yell things at a referee. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Never's an absolute. I think I've yelled once and then I immediately apologized.
Well, you weren't sort of sent to the stands or shown an immediate red card instead of facing a penalty kick.
I was not.
Fair?
It didn't occur to me that happened twice in 2 days. Mm-hmm. Wow. All right.
So we are here, if you haven't guessed, we are here to review all the Champions League action. To be more specific, more correct, the Champions League's action. We're going to talk a little UEFA Champions League and then some Concacaf Champions League as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, can we please start at the Bernabeu?
I think we have to.
Right.
We were planning not to, but now we have to.
Yeah, so we were going to review. We were kind of assuming we wouldn't have to do much of a review of Real Madrid Juventus because it was 3-0 to Real Madrid going in. Juve scored 3. It was 3-3 in the final minute or so. And then the drama happened. So today we're just going to talk about what we will call the drama.
Yep, I think that's fair.
So
I mean, and that does actually apply to the entire show as a whole because there's lots of drama. But
that's true, yeah.
Specifically the Madrid-based drama.
The Madrid-based drama. So it's 3-3. We're about to go to extra
on
time.
Aggregate, yeah.
Yep. Toni Kroos chips the ball into the box towards Cristiano Ronaldo, and I think you said something. Yeah. It had that feeling, right? It's like, oh, it's Ronaldo time.
I think I didn't see anything, but I did see a lot of people on Twitter saying like this game has late Ronaldo goal written all over it.
Yep. Oh, because Ramos as well was suspended, I think, so it wasn't going to be a Ramos goal. So it was only Ronaldo. Yeah.
And it was just when that ball went wide and then came back across. I think I was just like, oh, here it is. Here we go. Here it comes.
So
and sure enough,
Ronaldo nods it down into the path of Lucas Vazquez, who I believe has come off the bench.
You are correct.
Benatia gets around him, gets a foot across, makes a tackle. English referee Michael Oliver blows his whistle, points to the spot.
Yep.
Juventus go wild. I'm talking about the players. They're so angry at Michael Oliver. Gigi Buffon is yelling in his face. We don't know what he said, what I assume in English, because he knows Oliver's English. Must have said something to get himself sent off.
Yes, because he gets a straight red. And I think this might be like the only thing where I'm sort of like, I think that might have been a little bit harsh. That seems like maybe it wasn't necessary. I understand complaining. I kind of feel that way about Guardiola as well, but I think as you and I preach when we play, yelling at the referee really doesn't do anything because he's not going to change his mind.
There is no level of decibels that will make him change his mind.
Yeah.
All you can do is get more cards out of him.
Or it ends up being a massive distraction, or you end up getting yourself into trouble, and thus you're not there to try to save the penalty that ends up putting Real Madrid through.
So can we speculate? What do we think Buffon might have said to earn a red card?
Well, there's two things.
Because players protest quite often, right? But they don't get red cards for it. They just get sort of admonished by the referee or told to be quiet or told to go away. He got a red pretty fast.
So there's been some speculation that maybe there was an allegation of bribery or cheating. So that's one. My guess, though, from watching this a bunch of times, is that Michael Oliver is being shoved around. He is being touched a lot.
Yeah. Not by Buffon, though, right?
Well, I don't know. Gigi Buffon is definitely.
If he did touch you, you'd be very safe.
Well, maybe. But Gigi Buffon is definitely the first one there in his face.
Yep.
And there's definitely, as Michael Oliver tries to go away from him, he's surrounded by a crowd of Juve players. And there looks like maybe there's a little bit of like a grab or a shove in the back. And not necessarily like a full shove, but just like, hey, I'm not done talking to you. But I think if you're Michael Oliver, if you're surrounded by these players, if the captain and the one who was in your face in the very beginning, if you perceive him to have shoved you or touched you, I mean, if you touch the ref, technically it is grounds for a straight red. And that's, I'm thinking, what will end up being the case is that it will be some sort of like uninvited touching from Gigi Buffon is what the red card will actually be for.
Okay, but let's talk about the decision.
Because you can't get a straight red for dissent, right? Isn't dissent only a yellow? Like you would have to get 2 yellows.
So, but there's a next level of it if you sort of swear at a ref or say something really aggressive, right?
Okay,
there's dissent like kicking the ball away. You can't get a straight red for, but if you accuse him of cheating, then that's a different color card.
Our friend John Tolbert tried and failed to get a yellow for dissent, but oh well.
Let's talk about the actual decision. You mentioned the shoving possibly of Michael Oliver.
Yeah.
It seems that the penalty was awarded because before Benatia gets his leg around Vazquez, he pushes him in the back.
Yep.
Juventus disagreed. A lot of people on Twitter seem to disagree. On rewatching this, I think we're both convinced that he's guilty. I mean, Benatia, 2 hands in the back, pushes him enough to knock him over.
Michael Oliver's Wikipedia page has already been edited to suggest that he was paid by Florentino Perez. So yes, a lot of people have strong opinions about this. I have to give credit, as we so frequently do, to Stu Holden,
yes,
who kind of sticks by his guns throughout the commentary and says,
I made a fast decision.
There are 2 hands in the back, that's a penalty for me. And I didn't even see the second hand at first. It seemed like it was maybe a little bit of a shove, then the foot coming through, that put Vasquez off, he went down, penalty given. You watched again, as we did, several times, and it is definitely 2 hands in the back, and even if it doesn't look like 2 hands extended to shove Vasquez over, the one that really sold me was there's a wide-angle replay where Vasquez is basically squaring up to settle and then volley that ball. He is standing at the 6-yard box. There is really no more forward momentum from him, and he ends up sprawled out well inside the 6-yard box.
The forward momentum comes from somewhere else, and the only source we can find of that forward momentum is Mehdi Benatia's hands.
And I think he did about as good of a job as he could have done of making up for it, because I think what happens essentially is he recognizes
Vasquez or Benatia?
Benatia, because I think he's caught ball watching. He sees that ball go across to Ronaldo, and I think there's a moment of like, oh no, Ronaldo's got the ball. I'm like, I hope nothing happens.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I think he fails to track Lucas Vasquez, recognizes.
I don't know. I haven't watched the build-up. I got the feeling he was out doing something else, like putting out some other fire on the other side of the field and has to shuffle back over. And I remember thinking he's done a good job to get himself back in position and catch up.
That's
to
what
Vasquez.
I'm saying. That's my point, is that I think he gets caught, then has to make up that ground, because when that ball comes from Ronaldo, Vasquez is wide open. He's got at least a couple yards of safety, and I think Benatia recognizes, I got to close that gap. I'm not going to be able to cut that ball out. I'm going to have to make a little bit of contact here, and I think he comes as close as he could have to making a legal tackle on that ball, but he ends up just going through the back a little bit. I think it wasn't helped by the fact that, 2.5 minutes before that, he was booked, given a yellow card for like persistent
Charging
infringement
around.
Is the way I'm going to say that, because he knocked over 2 players, one of them twice, I think.
And there was some hands in the back on those tackles as well. So I think, he might have marked his own card with that one.
And it was very, I think the commentator said, like bull in a china shop, and that is what it looked like. And so if you're Michael Oliver, if that is fresh in your mind of this guy's just running around knocking people over.
That's a good point.
And then you see, oh, that guy's on the ground again, and that guy who was just knocking people over seems to have knocked him over. Penalty it is.
But he was so close to getting away with it. Was Mehdi Benatia, because there's the shove and the leg around at the same time. I don't think it was possible to do one without the other, if that makes sense.
No, I don't think it was. I think you're right. And I think, to your credit, you're the one who made us go back and see where Michael Oliver was in relation to this one. And I think if Oliver had been maybe a yard or two on either side of where he actually ended up being, maybe he thinks, oh no, like he just got there and got the foot in. That's not a penalty.
Can I say as well, for anyone who's going to be angry at us for sort of being pretty confident this was a penalty, Michael Oliver's angle is better than Gigi Buffon's angle, and it's better than the TV angle. Both the TV angles are from the sort of Ronaldo point of view, if that makes sense, if you remember where Ronaldo was. So you're sort of looking at Vasquez and seeing Benatia come in behind him. Michael Oliver was more square on, like you can always see them both in profile, so he can much better see the hands in the back, which are the offence, right? And he immediately whistle, point to the spot. He's very confident it's a penalty.
Yeah, he is. And I'll say from our, like, I feel like we're doing more of the, like, we know we're going to get some hate on this, and that's fine. But I also think that you and I try to not...
Peyton at TotalSockShow.com.
But you, Daryl Grove, are one of, like, the biggest haters I know of when it comes to, like, well, in the last 5 meetings, they won 4 out of 5. Like, you do not enjoy the whatever happened in the past dictates the present. And I think with that, we try to kind of remove some of the past incidents from games like this. And I think part of the reason why people who aren't Madrid fans feel so frustrated by this is that there's this sentiment that, like, oh, Madrid get bailed out again. Oh, Madrid somehow managed to escape this one. And it's what always happens. But for you and me, where we don't necessarily care about that stuff, we're trying to watch what happened in this game. What happened in this game was Mehdi Benatia put hands in the back, and at the end of the day, that's going to be a penalty.
Yep, and up he steps. Cristiano Ronaldo, he hit this hard.
My goodness.
He did, right? He had to wait a long time because Szczesny took his time. I don't know if deliberately or not. He definitely took his time walking onto the field, but he wasn't in a hurry to put the gloves on either.
I think it was deliberately because, as I recall, if you watch when Buffon gets sent to the locker room, Szczesny like grabs him and stops him and says something to him, which I have to imagine was something along the lines of, I got this, don't worry. And then he kind of like sprints off energetically, like, I'm going to go do it. And the next time you see him, he is slowly walking up to the spot. So I think, yeah, he's absolutely trying to make Ronaldo think.
I think he said, "Don't worry, Arsene Wenger taught me everything I know about saving penalties."
Oh man, don't worry. I was in England for a good long while. I know all about penalty shootouts.
Yours was better.
I took the inspiration.
Yours was better
because
yours offended a whole country.
But I will say, for people out there who maybe are practicing their penalty taking, this is the way to go. Pick a side, hit it hard.
But it takes a lot of confidence and technical mastery to be able to hit it hard and in the top right corner.
Yep.
Because it goes to the...
No, you're absolutely right.
It goes to the FIFA video game thing, right?
Yep.
The more power you have, the more you risk completely losing control. So hitting it hard is a dangerous thing to do unless you have the technique to put it exactly where you want it.
Yeah, Ronaldo had that one where you hold it and let go and you're like, "Ooh, I hope I didn't redline that." Like, it was real close, but it ends up going in. You're absolutely right. Maybe it's not just the power, but I think this was clearly...
If you can, then it's the way to do it.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, if you got those abs, you do what you want. But I think this was definitely an example, in my opinion, of a player picking the spot, saying, "I'm going to the right side, right corner, that's what I'm aiming for," and then adjusting from there. Whereas I think if you try to get overly elaborate and do the, was it Simone Zaza with the step, and then shots, that's not the way to go. I think pick a side, aim, shoot, score, celebrate.
Don't do any knees up.
Nah.
Don't do any knees
No.
up. All right, so Madrid go through to the Champions League semi-finals. Juventus do not, despite a really impressive, we assume, attempt at a comeback. So we didn't see the whole thing. Games that we did see much, much more of happened on Tuesday. Would you like to talk some Manchester City, Liverpool?
Yes, I would. I would like to, because I watched a decent amount of that Juventus game and I was like all excited to talk about Juve. And then I was like, no one wants to hear about the 3 goals Juve scored. It's going to be that penalty. So those notes are out the window. But I got notes for this game, so let's get to it.
Let's get to it. All right, so as you may know, last week Liverpool won 3-0.
I had heard.
It was always going to be uphill for Manchester City, but that's what made this really exciting, right? We confidently said, we think maybe Man City can turn this around. There's no way Roma can turn around a 3-goal deficit against Barcelona. And obviously that didn't happen. My apologies to Roma fans. We will discuss that game next. It was a strong start. Manchester City went 3 at the back. Gabriel Jesus had the ball in the net within, 2 or 3 minutes?
2 minutes,
I believe it was. Really nice Manchester City sort of on-the-break goal after that Virgil van Dijk failed clearance/pass.
Yeah, I mean, so there was a lot made of this at halftime in the analysis, which is that he, I think, thinks there's been a foul by, I believe, Raheem Sterling. Yeah. So he
it's good pressure from Sterling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Virgil van Dijk dribbling towards the sideline and kind of puts his hands up in the air to protest while still dribbling. No call given.
I thought he was saying, "I've got no one to pass to," but everybody else seems to be convinced that it was a Raheem Sterling foul that he thinks he suffered.
Yours is more defensible for Virgil van Dijk, so I'm sure that's what he'll say. And then I think essentially hears the footsteps, feels Raheem Sterling closing him down, tries to force that pass. I would add, does appear to be fouled after the ball is gone. He ends up getting knocked well out of bounds.
Does that excuse the pass? Does it happen early enough that it excuses what ends up being a very bad ball upfield that Bernardo Silva, I believe, easily picks off?
I mean, no, because it's a bad pass and Virgil van Dijk should make better decisions than to pass in the middle. But that said, if you're fouled after the ball is gone, it's still a foul. So there is that little wrinkle there. It doesn't really matter. But it is still poor decision-making from Van Dijk.
Can I say the worst thing about this from Virgil van Dijk? And it's okay because obviously Virgil van Dijk ends up happy, right? Because Liverpool win this game 2-1 because all kinds of other stuff happens. Right before this, Van Dijk is telling all his Liverpool teammates, he's doing that hands down, calm down, everybody calm down thing. Then Karius throws him the ball. And then he takes off dribbling at full tilt at the sideline and kind of ruins everything. So it's really it's like when you're telling everyone to be calm and then you start yelling at someone.
There's without spoiling too much, there's a scene in The American Office where one of the characters...
Are we avoiding spoilers for The American Office? Which ended years ago?
Dwight is the fire safety.
And also, it's not heavily plot driven, I don't think.
How dare you? Dwight is the fire safety officer and he simulates a fire and locks all the doors so everybody's freaking out. And Michael Scott keeps screaming, calm down, and then somebody says something else and he screams, calm the F down. And that's basically what Van Dijk did. He went from let's just calm down to 100 miles an hour, heavy metal, very quickly. And it didn't quite work out for him in that situation.
And then the ball bounces to Fernandinho, who, as we well know, is capable of some incredible passes. He slides it through basically the entire Liverpool team.
Yep.
Give or take.
Pretty much.
For Raheem Sterling, who squares to Jesus, ball is in the back of the net. 1-0 City early on.
Man, and I read an article today that Guardiola has said he only wants to sign 2 players, one of whom is a holding defensive midfielder. And I don't get that because Fernandinho is very, very good.
Yep.
But who knows? Pep Guardiola knows these things better than I.
Oh, is that bad news for Gundogan?
That could be.
Yeah.
Although he has been playing on the right, but more
That's
on
what I
him
mean.
later.
Maybe he's looked at him and thought, this isn't going to work long term.
That's possible.
Yeah,
That's
possible.
possible. Well, he didn't do much to help himself in this one.
All right, big time narrative wise, 1-0 early on, exactly what Man City wanted.
Yeah.
We'll maybe talk a little later about what Liverpool were doing to kind of contain them apart from this early goal.
Sure.
But they had the ball in the back of the net right
did.
before half time, and it was going to be 2-0 to Manchester City going into the break. They would have been only 1 goal away from the comeback they'd been dreaming of at the Etihad. Leroy Sane scores. It's ruled out for offside. This has been talked about endlessly.
Yep.
Endlessly. This is Guardiola. After this was so angry, he yelled at the referee and got himself sent to the stands. I don't even know how to.
So
how
we're good
to
then, right? If it's
start
been
with
talked about
this.
endlessly, you can find it elsewhere. Let's move on, shall we?
There are so many angles to this; it's quite hard to know, right? Let's start with the basic description.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Kevin De Bruyne chips the ball into the box. Karius comes, punches kind of clear. It hits.
It's a generous term.
It hits / deflects / is played by off the knee of. I've deliberately used all kinds of words there. James Milner, who probably doesn't deserve the James Milner tag for this moment.
James would have settled that and cleared it.
He would. And then that goes back towards the Liverpool goal where Leroy Sane is waiting and scores.
Yep.
That's a good description of it, right?
Yep.
Okay. It's ruled out for offside.
Yeah.
One thing it's worth going up from the top is because Karius is out, it doesn't matter that Sane is not beyond the last defender, right? It's the second to last defender,
Yeah.
and that at this point is someone way farther up the field because Karius has come out.
Right.
So that's worth clearing up. The other important part is I believe the referee thinks this ball has been played not by James Milner but by Gabriel Jesus, and that's why he flags Leroy Sane for offside.
I think you are correct.
Yeah.
And with that, I have to say, for the second time this show, don't question Stu Holden. Because once again, Stu Holden says, I don't think that should have been called back. That looked like a goal to me. I disagreed with him.
Is he from the future?
He might be.
He's already seen all this.
He gets this stuff mostly right. And I've watched it again, talking with you, talking with our mystery official, our mystery VAR expert, is how I'm going to put that one. He agrees. He agrees, number one, with you, that he thinks that the referee thought Jesus played the ball to Leroy Sane. That is maybe why he called him offside. That's why the AR did in the first place. Then there was maybe a conversation about...
Because then he definitely would have been offside, right, if it was off of Jesus.
Absolutely. Because, again, as you said, Karius out. It means only one defender between him and the goal.
Yep.
So that would be it. So maybe that's number one where the mistake happens.
And I've got more evidence for this, is at half-time, I think before the Guardiola talking to the referee incident, I see Jesus talking to the referee, and he seems to be gesturing sort of, it wasn't me, and the referee's pointing at him like saying, no, it was you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's doing like a Shaggy thing. It wasn't me. But
Yeah.
So that's why I think that's where this whole mistake stems from. So there are many layers to how this offside thing works, but I actually think this one's quite simple, and it's a case of the referee making a mistake in terms of who played the ball to Leroy Sane.
I think you're right. I think that there's like a lot more to this if we want to go in depth on it. But I think
I kind of do though.
I think I do too. But I think you're correct. You're absolutely correct that at the end of the day, it was basically just the referee made a mistake, but not the mistake everyone thinks they made. But it was still a mistake and should have been a goal.
Yep, and I'm going to as well just make sure we say the referee's name, Antonio Mateo Lahoz. I'm saying that because I hear so many sort of analyses of what referees are doing, and they just keep saying the referee, the referee, the referee.
Well, I believe Guardiola said he's a special fellow, so something like that. All right, so the major debate at the time, though, was people thinking that the ball came off of James Milner, which it did, but people thinking that was the issue, and whether or not, because the issue then would be, did it come off James Milner intentionally? Was he trying to make a play on the ball? Was he trying to make a defensive play? Or was he just unaware the ball hit him and went back to Leroy Sane?
Okay, so it's worth pointing out here. If it's a deliberate play by James Milner, then Leroy Sane is not offside because Milner's made a deliberate play. If it is just sort of accidentally deflected off of Milner, then you can argue that Sane then should not be flagged for offside because it's just a mistake. Yeah. Right? That, to me, that gets really, really complicated because that is very black and white, and what James Milner does is very, not complicated, it's very hard to define. It doesn't fit easily into one of those two boxes because it sort of gets punched at him and he kind of just sees it at the very last second and just like sticks his knee out. So is a deflection? Is that deliberate? Like, he wouldn't plan to do that, right?
No,
I think this is like the imperfection of the laws.
Yeah, because
you know what I'm saying?
It is. I think. Well, it's the imperfection of the laws combined with people thinking that the laws are perfect.
Yes.
Because the reality, I mean, genuinely, like, why we have lawyers is because law can be argued, and it can be in, like, what did is mean? Not going down that road, but you can have that idea of like, well, like, and I think people then take the sort of Cliff Notes version of the law as, oh, studs up, that means red card. When that is not what it is, but that's how it gets explained. And I think that factors into this too, that people get so focused on what does that mean without really focusing on what actually happened on the field. And so in this case, I would compare it to when like a hand is moving in, like a defender's moving their hand in the box and it's seen as hand to ball, not ball to hand, but the hand is moving. That's what it looks like with me with James Milner here. His leg is moving, but I can't necessarily say because it happens so quickly if it's moving to make a play on the ball or if it's moving because soccer requires you to move.
So then that's just a thing that's so hard to define. There's almost no correct decision unless you somehow look into James Milner's mind at that moment and know exactly what's happening.
Yep.
We do not have the technology for that just yet.
Just yet. Although, we'll get there soon, I think,
right?
Especially with James Milner.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing that is so confusing to me is that you could go, like, you could continue to trace this back because one thing I think is worth noting is that, say, Daryl Grove and I are on the same team. Daryl shoots, and the other team's goalkeeper saves it. I'm standing there for the rebound, but when Daryl shot, I was in an offside position. So if I score, I'm offside. The goalkeeper making a save doesn't factor into this, right?
They're the exception to the sort of deliberate play rule.
And so then I keep thinking,
which is weird.
So then if Karius came out and punched it, well, then he's just making a save. So then Sane is offside because then it's a goalkeeper, you negate that. And then if James Milner wasn't making a defensive action, then Sane is offside, except that then when the shot was taken, which is the key thing here, in this case the cross from De Bruyne, Sana was onside. So then it's even more confusing because then he technically wasn't offside ever. So it gets very confusing. And I'm glad that we're not Champions League officials is what it comes down to.
So what do we come down on? Do we say that this goal probably should have stood?
Yes. I think so.
I
think
feel
for the
that way
reason,
too.
because going back to it, I think you're absolutely right. I think the referee thought, oh, Gabriel Jesus passed that. He's definitely offside. People are confused because the goalkeeper's out of position, but it's definitely offside. And I think you're absolutely right that that didn't happen. And then maybe if you remove that and look at the nuances of it coming off James Milner, I think they probably give it as a goal.
And then, especially when you include your point about Karius playing it sort of doesn't rule someone offside, then, it should be a goal for Leroy Sane.
Yeah, and I think then there's the argument of like, does this mean between this and the Real Madrid penalty, should we have VAR in the Champions League? And I did see somebody, I forget who it was, say, but the reality is we would have ended up waiting for 6 minutes and then half of the internet still would have been annoyed. So that's kind of where we are.
But at least so, I mean, in the Real Madrid-Juventus case, you just would have had some, I think, confirmation of the correct decision.
Yeah.
Or at least Michael Oliver would have got a second look at it, or someone else would have got a second look at it to confirm what he saw, right?
Yeah.
But with this Man City case, I think this would have changed the tie completely. Because as we said, they would have given the goal, and then it would have been 2-0 to Manchester City at half-time. This is absolutely huge.
And that means Pep Guardiola would not have been sent off, which is, I have to say, another major point.
So isn't that one of the big mistakes from Pep Guardiola? The way he talked to the referee, Lahoz, at half-time, he said something that got himself sent to the stands and unable to be involved in the rest of the game.
Yep.
All he could really do was sort of sit there and look sad as Liverpool scored 2 goals.
Well, allegedly, that's not the case. Allegedly, because UEFA have charged him, one, with the altercation with the official, but two, once you're dismissed, there's a rule that you're not allowed to communicate anymore. He visibly communicated with his coaching staff because one of his coaches ran up and was seen at the top of the stairs talking to him and then turned around and ran down the tunnel. So I think
that could be trouble for the future. So he could be banned for some UEFA games going forward, right?
But then besides that, he also looked very frustrated.
But even if he did manage to have that one chat that he sent down there, you've also got to think that how much more could he have done communicating on the side? You know, because he talks to his players a lot through the game. He could have had a lot more influence on this game if he'd actually been down pacing his technical area instead of sat in a chair.
But the strangest thing, though, is that he was on the pitch in the first place trying to get his players off the pitch. I listened to this.
I was really confused by that too.
Yeah, they were talking about this on The Continent, which is a lovely podcast. They were basically saying like he went there to calm everybody down, and the speculation they had was that maybe he's just so like borderline OCD that he can't let it go. And that when he feels like, oh, we're doing this now, I'm going to have to let you know you got this wrong. And that can escalate really quickly if he's just trying to like say, hey, just so you know, you got this wrong. That doesn't ever end up being that like easy of an argument, and maybe it escalates from there. But it's still just strange that you would expect him to maybe know this is not the time to lose my mind. But I guess it was.
And in this case, we don't know what he said, right? Because I'm assuming he said it in Spanish because the referee's Spanish and Guardiola obviously speaks Spanish.
Yep.
So we don't know what was said, but it was enough that the referee was not happy about it.
Yeah, and this is another one where I don't think that necessitates being sent off. Now, this is one I will put my hands up and say, I don't know the rules when it comes to what you're allowed to say or imply to an official. And I know that he and Lajos have some
Can you
sort
say
of...
freedom for Catalonia?
I think that you can. I don't even know. But I know that he and Lajos have some sort of history going back to La Liga and other Champions League games. He made some comments about him afterwards, implying, I think, that he likes to be the center of attention. Yeah. So maybe that's what he's saying here. But I don't know that if I'm the coach and I imply that the official's cheating or is on the take or has some grudge against me, I don't know if you're allowed to make those sort of disparaging comments without being sent off. I really don't know what the line is between being allowed to continue and being sent to the stands.
Well, whatever it was, Guardiola appeared to cross it. Can we talk second half then?
Sure.
Because Liverpool, I think, were pretty excellent in the second half. Got 2 goals. This game finished 2-1. That's 5-1 on aggregate to Liverpool. So before we move on, I know we obviously wanted to talk about the drama.
I think we definitely need to take some time with this one because it would be a disservice. And I would say that if this were like Mourinho, I would have thought that was almost intentional because we've ended up spending most of our review of Man City Liverpool talking about a disallowed City goal and the manager for Man City being sent off and not the excellent work put in by Liverpool. Yep.
So I think they did essentially more of the same from the first leg, which was to go 4-3-3. Henderson was out suspended, I believe. Wijnaldum came in and replaced him, did a very admirable job at the sort of middle of the centre midfield. But I think they did that same thing they didn't do the sort of almost like New York Red Bulls type, all aggressive press, just chase the ball down. It was a much more structured, close off all the passing lanes, keep the 3 central midfielders central and ready to win the ball off of you. And I think we talked about this in the first leg. Show everybody inside. That's what I kept seeing, especially from Mane and Salah, when they were sort of pressuring Man City defenders bringing the ball out. They would always show them inside. And that's a big choice, right? You either show people outside, show them to the wings where we can go and pressure them on the wings, or you show them inside where you think we've got the guys in there, the numbers are in there, and we can win the ball back in there.
Yeah.
And it kept working. And it's the opposite of what Man City want to do because they want to spread it wide to Sane and to Silva, spread you wide and then attack you through the middle from there.
Yeah. And forgive me because we're about to go into percentages here, but this is the best way I can explain it for people who maybe are wondering why that's a big deal, is that if you are in practice and if your team is always practicing right center back plays to the right wing back drives forward, bypasses one way, they play to this person, that person plays to that person. If you're Liverpool and you watch that same footage and see those passing tendencies, if Daryl wants to pass to Taylor 80% of the time and you remove that option, then suddenly he has to do the thing he does only 20% of the time, which is not the natural thing. And even
it's like having to order at a restaurant when the thing that you came for is it's like if you go to
that is a great example.
A certain Italian restaurant here in Richmond, everybody wants the eggplant parmesan, right? Correctly, because it's amazing. But quite often it's out because everybody wants it. And then you have to order something else. And even though what you get is pretty good, it's not the eggplant parmesan.
And there is nothing worse. That is not true. There are many things worse. But when you are like the cocky orderer who's like, I know what I'm getting, and everybody deliberates and decides, and then you order, and they're like, oh, no, we're out of that. It's like, oh, now I'm scrambling. Now I don't know what to do. And I think that's kind of what happened is that City, because they didn't have those first choice or second choice options, they're scrambling a little bit. They're not quite as confident with some of the passes that they normally would be, and I think Liverpool can pounce upon those opportunities. And they are definitely a team that is built to be ruthlessly efficient, and that if you give them one chance, Liverpool, they will take that one chance.
Do you want to talk about their 2 chances?
I do.
That they definitely
they gave them 2 in this one.
So the first goal for Liverpool is quite early in the second half, right? Like 50-something minute. It's from Mohamed Salah. It's after a long bit of Liverpool possession, right? So this bit of Liverpool possession starts with Kevin De Bruyne thinks he's on a counter-attack. Firmino tracks him back, gets a tackle in. Liverpool get the ball back. They don't give it up for a long, long, long time.
They don't. And I want to say, again, Buffon, Guardiola, Kevin De Bruyne here, people, if you're playing soccer, don't stop to complain to the referee. If you don't get the call, you don't get the call. But number 1, you take yourself out. Number 2, you distract your teammates. And that, again, is what happened. Kevin De Bruyne thinks he's been fouled. No foul given. He doesn't track back. He doesn't get into the right position. He stands there with his hands out. And I have to say, pains me as a Man United fan, I don't think you see Liverpool players do that, or at least not consistently.
Yep.
They know I'm getting back or I'm getting screamed at by the guy with the glasses.
Yep. And it makes a difference. Right? Even if the goal comes like 2 minutes after Firmino's tackle, it starts with that.
Yeah.
Okay, can we break down the actual goal? You got something to say?
I do, because it's just occurred to me, again, this is why if you don't have Guardiola on the sidelines, Guardiola equally passionate, equally likely to scream at you for making a mistake. But if he's up in the stands, you don't really have that person who's going to scream at you, so maybe you think, oh, maybe I'll go on this dribble. Maybe I'll stop to have a word. And suddenly the other team isn't doing that, and suddenly the other team is scoring.
Well, they were trying to pressure Liverpool players. They tried to pressure Giorgio Wijnaldum, and they're thinking, you're not Jordan Henderson, we can get the ball off you. Wijnaldum thought differently. They kept saying that all the way through. I can't remember who was pressuring him. Was it Jesus was pressuring him? He's sort of in his own defensive midfield area. He does like a nice little swivel on top of the ball, and then manages to find Oxlade-Chamberlain outside of the foot pass from Oxlade-Chamberlain to Salah, who takes a quick look over his shoulder, lays it off to Sadio Mane, who then can dribble straight at Ederson, past Laporte. It just all happened very quickly in a way that I think is exactly how Jurgen Klopp sort of dreams it up.
Yeah, and I think to that point, like when we rewatched this together, you were saying like, oh, Ronaldo makes such a good pass here, such a good pass. And for me, it was sort of like, well, he makes like a 20-yard ball like up the field.
Yeah.
But number one, that comes about after he's drawn in two Man City players, cut back, caused problems. But number two, a simple pass can be a very good pass if it bypasses pressure, splits some defenders. Suddenly you put the other team in complete transition, and now they're scrambling to get into the right shape.
They were scrambling.
It's a very good pass.
None of the dishes they wanted were on the menu.
They reached the, what else you got? What do you have on the menu? Point.
Do you have anything? So Ederson does make the save, I believe, from Mane. It pops out to Mohamed Salah. I want to give him credit here. So we keep saying this, but the calmness of his finish, because he chips it over Otamendi, who's on the line. It's a really nice, clever finish from Mohamed Salah.
Somebody's got to give him credit, because the FA certainly don't want to.
I believe Harry Kane got credit for this goal, actually.
Yeah, he did. I think everyone give all the goals to Harry Kane. That's how this works.
And then the second Liverpool goal is a lot simpler. It's Otamendi looking for a pass, taking too long, Firmino putting him under immense pressure, blocking his attempted pass upfield, and then charging at goal and finishing. 2-1.
That's all it takes, man.
Back of the net, as Alan Partridge
Ruthlessly efficient.
Ruthlessly efficient.
My final thing I did want to add, because I know we got to get going on to other topics, but I want to say one thing that really stood out to me as a minor thing but an important thing was how focused Liverpool were, and the thing that emphasized this for me was what they did when defending Man City's corners. Because City liked to play the corner short and then give the ball back to the person who took the corner.
Yes, they really spotted that, right?
So now you've got those two players. Now they're in a position where either that initial corner taker can cross the ball or they can pull out defenders and try to do some combinations. Liverpool watched this, and at least twice, as soon as that short corner went out, that whole back line stepped up 6 yards. And I think it was Leroy Sane both times caught offside as a result. That is some consistent video watching to have that and to have everybody drilled so that as soon as that ball goes, everybody's stepping. It speaks again to the amount of preparation that was put into this one by Klopp.
And they 100% knew, right? Because I think you see Lovren, a couple of others, arms in the air immediately. They've caught him.
And it's the arm in the air of, we know we've caught you.
Yeah.
It's not the,
you guys saw
that, right?
It was a Tony Adams Arsenal late 80s arm in the air.
It's just sort of you know what we've done. I'm going to put my hand in the air. I'm going to wait for that whistle.
We got you. We got you.
Yes.
Leroy Sane would want these two legs back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because even when he did the right thing, it went against him.
Yeah.
Okay, so
still good, though.
Congratulations to Liverpool, who are going through. Manchester City, still a fearsome team, soon to be crowned Premier League champions, unless this creates a massive downward spiral.
Man, I forget how much people have been waiting to write negative stuff about Man City until they lose 3 games in a row. And there's an article in The Guardian about how this phrase "bald fraud" has gone up 7,000 times in the last 3 days because Pep Guardiola lost, and so he's a bald fraud. He's still
not a political thing.
I hope not. But they're going to win the Premier League at a canter. He is going to strengthen. They're going to be an even stronger team next season. Let's calm down with this whole Pep Guardiola isn't actually a good manager sort of narrative that seems to be trying to be established.
No, you should get hit with every one of his trophies if you say that.
That's a lot of trophies.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we got more Champions Leagues to talk about, including Roma, Barcelona.
And some closer to home.
Some closer to home as well.
Somewhat closer.
But first, today's show is sponsored by Fan Futsal. You have heard about Fan Futsal on the last few Total Soccer shows. It is a different type of fantasy football.
So let's talk about how different it is, Daryl. What makes it different aside from the fact that it's not couched as fantasy football when actually it's gambling?
Because, it is very specifically not that. It is pure fantasy football for the love of football. It is, you pick a five-a-side team, and instead of picking specific players, you pick teams by looking at who they're going up against that weekend. And then, if you have a team that you think is going to score a lot of goals that weekend, you make them your striker. They'll get points for every. You'll get points for every goal that your team scores.
Yeah.
If you've got a good defensive team, you see, and they're playing someone you think they're going to get a clean sheet, put them in goal or put them in defence, and you'll get points for their clean sheets.
So we have the TSS Premier League tournament ongoing. Nick Pickett won this week with 65 points. Not bad there. I think our recommendations for Premier League fantasy players was to play whoever is playing West Brom as your attack. So maybe that's what Nick did. We don't know for sure. But we do know for sure that they're going to be creating 2 new tournaments for our listeners. 2
Major League Soccer tournaments are going to be created. There's a Major League Soccer Tournament 1, Major League Soccer Tournament 2, both branded with TSS. So the TSS MLS tourney is what it will be called. There's a maximum of 32 entrants in each tournament. The Premier League thing, I think, filled up within... I actually don't know the time frame, but very quickly.
12 seconds.
Let's say 12 seconds. Yep. That's what Dave at Fan Futsal told
Seems
us
logical.
Last time around. So if you want to get in on this, you've got to be fast. You've got to get your team into the MLS tourney really quick. Link is in the show notes.
They have asked that if you're going to try to participate, you only join one league because, as we said, there's only 64 spots.
Don't be a space hog.
To take up 2, that's not fair. It's 1/32 of all the spots.
Have we got any advice for people selecting a team based on Major League Soccer?
I mean, it seems like Sporting KC have figured out their defensive issues, so maybe go with them in defense. Depends on who they're playing. And then it seems like Atlanta, as you and I both thought they might, score goals whenever they feel like it.
So maybe, Atlanta as your forward if you want to get a bunch of goals. I would say not Orlando as your defensive team, because even though I think they've won their last 2 games, but they've conceded, they won 4-3 and 3-2 both their last couple of games. So maybe not the best choice. Maybe not LAFC on defense either. Conceded 5 and 4 in their 2 most recent games. And not DC United ever, because they're not looking good this year. No good can come of DC United.
We'll wait till they sign Mario Balotelli, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, I will watch.
I think we all will. But yes, thank you to Fan Futsal for sponsoring today's show. A link to both of those different MLS tournaments will be in the show notes.
Oh, and if they do fill up, if you're not one of the lucky first 64 to get in, you can also create your own tournament or join another tournament separately. So you can still play, but only the first 2 sets of 32 can join the TSS MLS tourney.
And the winners of those tournaments at the end will be given a TSS t-shirt.
Yes.
So that would be the other incentive to play in these.
That is the incentive.
Unless somebody wants to create their own and then buy a TSS shirt to give away.
But that's not sanctioned by Dave at Fan Futsal. All right. More Champions League.
More Champions League.
So last week I said there is no way that Roma can turn around a 4-1 deficit that they suffered against Barcelona, because these are no longer the Francesco Totti days where magical things like that can happen. I have to apologise. I was 100% wrong, because they beat Barcelona 3-0 in Rome, and they go through on away goals.
Well, you were just incorrect about which Francesco was supplying the magic. Because in this case, Eusebio Di Francesco, the Roma coach, seems like he did some video watching of his own, did some soul searching, got this one completely right, switched to a back 3/back 5. That seems to have been a key part of making the difference.
And it's also Totti's sort of fellow legend when he eventually retires. Daniele De Rossi was at the heart of a lot of what happened, a lot of the great stuff that happened for Roma here.
Yes. Can I add, I did enjoy, and maybe you've already seen this, that somebody made the point that De Rossi, Manolas, and Dzeko scored in this game, so they scored in both games.
Yes, so De Rossi and Manolas both had own goals in the 4-1 defeat.
Yeah.
They both had goals in this one. Manolas with the eventual winner. So 3-0 to Roma, they got the away goal, so they go through. Can we talk about how they did it then? You mentioned Di Francesco sort of seemed to have done his homework.
Yeah, so again, from what I've heard and read, it sounds like he did a lot of soul-searching thinking, like, how did I get this wrong when they were more or less blown out by Barcelona? Went back and watched the footage and thought, this was closer than it looks like the final result indicates, where it was 2 own goals. We made a couple mistakes, were punished for those, but apparently went and showed his players like 50, 60 minutes of footage where they did what they needed to do, and he was basically saying, close out those 30, take our chances, we're right back in this, and I think he was correct. That said, he did make the changes that we talked about, switching to the back 3, back 5, whatever you want to go with, and then it seems like the kind of just like raw pressure and enthusiasm and work ethic from Roma really was not something. I think Barcelona maybe also thought, this one's kind of over, we'll be all right. Weren't expecting that high level of intensity from Roma.
So I had a good look at this. I think everything you just said is correct. I got some more details though. Here's what I think Roma did. They put 2 big guys up front, 2 target forwards. Edin Dzeko and Patrick Schick are both big guys and both dangerous guys, right? 2 target forwards, and then 3, I'm going to say, warriors in central midfield.
Yeah.
It was Strootman, Nainggolan, and Daniele De Rossi.
Yep.
And what Roma would do is essentially play not aimless, but very direct and long balls to Dzeko or to Schick, who would either win it in the air or hold it up and bring it down, or even if they lost the aerial battle, when the ball landed, the Warriors swarmed.
Yep.
And De Rossi or Nainggolan or Strootman would be all over whichever Barcelona player got the ball. This is a game where I saw Andres Iniesta sort of crumple under pressure from opponents. Normally he's the guy who can, drop his shoulder, get out of trouble, and then Barcelona are off and passing. They're doing their possession thing. They weren't allowed to do this in this game. I've never seen Barcelona so flustered.
And I think a big part of that, to your point about Dzeko and Schick up top, is that Roma came out in a 3-5-2. Barcelona were in a 4-4-2, in a flat 4-4-2 at that. So now you've got 2 forwards matched up against 2 center backs. That's 1v1 and 1v1.
Absolutely.
So then to your point, when that ball drops and it's a 50-50 ball, you've got 2 central midfielders for Barcelona, 3 coming through for Roma.
Yep.
I could be wrong, but I think 3 is more than 2. So that means you're going to have mismatches. And then if you're Barcelona, if you try to kind of make it compact, you're leaving the wings open for those wing backs to come forward. And I think basically whatever Barcelona did, they were always sort of reacting to what Roma wanted to be doing. And whenever you're in that situation, you're kind of playing into your opponent's hands.
So here's a good example of that. For the first goal, which is very, very early, Dzeko scores early in this one to sort of give them hope in the Gabriel Jesus for Man City kind of way. 6 minute he scores. They're all the Barcelona back 4 and second 4 are all kind of collapsed.
Yep.
Daniele De Rossi receives the ball in central midfield from Manolas. And Manolas basically, it gives him like a head-up gesture, which I think just means like, hey, time, you can turn around. He turns around and he's got the entire field ahead of him. There is no Barcelona player within 10, 15 yards of him, and there is no Barcelona player coming towards him. Busquets, Iniesta, Roberto, and I've forgotten who the other central midfielder, Rakitic.
Yeah.
They all back off and let Daniele De Rossi look up and spray a pass. If you've ever seen De Rossi play, you would not have done that. That is not what you do, because he lifts that ball over the entire Barcelona team and directly in front of Edin Dzeko, who takes a beautiful touch and then finish. But you shouldn't give De Rossi time to do that, ever.
No.
Ever.
No, and I think, though, like you shouldn't, but if you're Barcelona, maybe, especially this Barcelona, maybe you have to. And this was a point made by Jonathan Wilson for The Guardian. He was saying that essentially if you've got some of the players you have for Barcelona, Iniesta and Busquets most readily come to mind, who don't quite have the legs that they used to, and even then, maybe if your Busquets didn't have the legs even then, that you can't really do that high-pressure step up and make sure De Rossi doesn't have time. So the way to combat that is to have those compact banks of 4. But then you're really giving up a lot of space and letting Roma kind of do what they want, including play those long balls into the box for the maybe overmatched, outmatched, whatever you want to go with, center backs.
And then a sort of similar thing happens for the second goal. It's Nainggolan this time who lifts the ball over the defence. Dzeko's kind of through, but PK is with him. Have you had a good look at this? So I didn't think it was a penalty to begin with. It looked to me like Dzeko had kind of just pushed PK over, and it should be a free kick to Barcelona.
Yeah.
But on the rewatch, I'm assuming you eagle-eyed, you would have seen this, right? PK's grabbing Dzeko's wrist and not letting go.
Yeah.
And I think it was again sort of like Benatia. It's almost a clever bit of defending because it makes it look like Dzeko's strong-arming PK. But what's actually happening is PK is not letting go of Dzeko.
Yep.
And I think in the end, PK just loses out because Dzeko's stronger than him. And then as PK goes down, he doesn't let go of the hand, ends up dragging Dzeko down in a very obvious way at this point. Penalty kick to Roma.
And this is the mistake that PK makes, is he lets Dzeko get a little bit of daylight between them. Because you and I have talked about this before. Like, one of my sort of go-to cheating maneuvers is that if you're dribbling the ball and you know you're losing that foot race, when that defender comes up to you, you lock arms with them so that you're like running next to them. Ref can't see that. You fall forward, they fall on top of you. It always looks like you've been clipped.
He's doing a version of that, yes.
But if you let there be space between you enough that the ref can see you pulling that arm, then they're going to see you pulling that arm and know that you're the one that made that infraction. So that was the first thing I thought was like, oh, you didn't learn from my old Haitian club coach how to correctly make contact.
Mr. Etienne?
Correct.
So, yeah, that's 2-0 to Roma. Daniele De Rossi, who scores the penalty kick, because as we learned last week, he's pretty deadly from 12 yards out.
Yep. It took me a minute. That was good. That doesn't even get a huzzah. That was just well done, my friend.
The final goal comes in the 82nd minute. Di Francesco has made some clever changes at this point. Sheik has come off and on has come El Shawari, and also, is it pronounced Under? Yeah, and I think just added Under.
I don't know how to do it.
They've added a bit of sort of pace and trickery, but still have the big target of Edin Dzeko, so it just gives Roma something else to challenge Barcelona with, changes it up a bit for the last 10, 20 minutes. It ends with a Roma corner, which Manolas, the defender who scored an own goal last week, Greek defender, makes a really clever run across the top, beating Semedo to the ball, heads it into the far corner, runs off, celebrating, screaming at the camera.
And also making the Italian commentator scream super
this.
high pitched. Oh yeah, you can watch
this.
that. Maybe Grant Wall has retweeted it. If you can find that one on Twitter.
Okay,
that commentator goes nuts.
I just want to credit. I want to credit Manolas with the very clever flick header to the far post, because you see Ter Stegen, the Barcelona keeper, cover the near post because that's the obvious place for Manolas to put it. He outwits Ter Stegen.
Yeah, I mean, it is a perfect header, and it almost seems as though maybe us making fun of our Greek friend Pav for having a Greek centre-back score an own goal.
Yes.
The Greek gods thought, no. He must be avenged.
We'll do right by Pav.
Yes, exactly.
Well done, Greek gods.
There you go. Still doing some things.
Anything else to say on this game?
Nope, other than I think I do kind of buy into the idea that I'm excited for Roma to have gone through Liverpool as well, because it feels like it isn't going to be or won't be like Bayern, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juventus.
Yeah,
it's nice to see a little bit of a break.
Yeah, a little bit of variety in the Champions League semi-finals. Okay.
I think I'd still, at the end of the day, would like to see a Liverpool-Real Madrid final. I think that would be fascinating.
Yes.
But really, at this point, I'm happy to see any of them.
Yeah. So we should also mention Bayern-Sevilla 0-0. Bayern go through 2-1 on aggregate. I actually haven't seen that. I sort of assumed that would happen, which was a dangerous thing to think after what Roma did yesterday.
Was it, though, with Bayern? Again, remember, the Sevilla players were like applauding the fans and the fans applauding them as though that fixture were already over after the first leg. So, there's that.
We haven't seen the Champions League draw yet, and I'm going to just guess that it's Friday morning, because it always tends to be Friday morning. So we'll know the semi-finals on Friday, we expect.
We do.
In the other Champions League,
yes, sir.
The Champions League of Concacaf, it was the semi-finals second leg last night. First up, the New York Red Bulls played Chivas de Guadalajara at Red Bull Arena. They were 1-0 down from the first leg. And
wait, don't spoil it for me, because I've still got 10 minutes to go. The Go90 app is still loading. It's going to refresh in a minute here, and I'm going to be able to see what happens. So I guess we can talk about it if you really want to, but the page will return, so just stay with me. Can you tell I'm angry?
Have you been saving that joke?
No, I haven't. I forgot to include in my notes that I wanted to mention Go90. And really, as soon as I remembered it, the rage came back, and I just had to insert it as quickly as possible.
So we have in the past been sort of frustrated, then complimentary of Go90.com. But essentially, if you can't stream a soccer match that everybody's watching, then you're not a proper streaming site, right?
No, and I did battle with that idea of it's a free service, right? And so maybe I shouldn't be so frustrated. Yeah. Is this the Louis C.K.? It's going to space. Be patient. But in the end...
It's not, right? It's owned by Verizon. It's owned by a big, big company. Yeah. I pay a Verizon finance bill. Presumably some of my money is going to funding Go90.
Yeah, so I think once I got rid of that, I was just kind of annoyed.
My favourite tweet was from...
Andy Das?
Yes, but I've just realised it's my second favourite tweet. Andy Das said it should be called Go84. Yeah. You missed about 6 minutes of the game. My favourite tweet was yours comparing this to a Hooli moment.
I mean, it was the exact same thing. I guess the only one being that Go90 weren't launching new features, but it really was. I'd watched a few things on Go90 before, but nothing that really stood out to me. And this is enough for me to never trust Go90 again and really make me think okay, let's see what else is out there. Maybe somebody has a camera pointed at a condor nest. Maybe that's what I want to watch.
Did they?
I don't know. I haven't checked it. We'll see.
Well, I watched on Univision Deportes, and I was perfectly happy with what I saw.
Look at you and your Verizon login.
But that's also because I'm not a New York Red Bulls fan.
Yeah.
I imagine for a New York Red Bulls fan, this game was massively frustrating because they sort of did everything you expect a Jesse Marsch Red Bulls team to do, which is really intense, high pressure, never, ever let up. They turned this thing into a sort of absolute nightmare, I think, for Chivas de Guadalajara. And it was, I wrote down this was like a 90-minute goalmouth scramble. It was chaos. And you would expect within all that 90 minutes of chaos, the ball would have gone in the back of the net at least once. My only question to you, Taylor, is how did that not happen?
I think I have an idea,
Okay.
and I think maybe it's going to offend a whole bunch of people. We'll see what happens. But I think I'm going to go with the consensus opinion, which is that this is not a very good Chivas team in relation to Chivas teams of the past. It is not a very well-run Chivas team. So I think they were very frustrated going into this game. I think there was some issues about travel accommodations and flights and the way front office has dealt with some things. So it felt
Chivas
like
players are not happy with the Chivas front office.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it felt like this was a game where New York really could have taken advantage. But I think when you're coming from a Red Bulls perspective of, oh, we got this, let's go even harder, what you don't think about is the fact that if you're Chivas, if you kind of already have the situation you have with the 1-goal lead, you don't really need to win, and you don't really need to play that much soccer as a result. And so I think they didn't anticipate Chivas sort of being like, fine, have the ball. We'll sit back. We're willing to just hoof the ball long, and now you've got to build from your goalkeeper instead of winning it off our center back as he's put under pressure. And so I think it was sort of with the players, the Chivas players, not so up for like, let's possess and pass and really entertain the home crowd. It was sort of like, well, let's just go out, give them the ball, hold on to the 1-0 win. And so I think what ended up happening then is that if you're the Red Bulls who are used to winning the ball high up the pitch and having lots of opportunities, if you're suddenly building from the back and everybody's in front of you, it kind of takes away that plan A.
I'd also say even when the Red Bulls did win the ball quite high up the pitch, there were still a bunch of Chivas players behind the ball.
Yeah.
Right? Because they never came out of their shell. It's not like they ever caught them on a sort of Otamendi being tackled by Firmino and then Firmino straight at goal break. That could never have happened in this game because Chivas would never have been that far spread out, right?
Yeah.
A midfielder could lose the ball. There'd still be 6 or 7 players bottled up behind where the ball was won for Red Bulls.
And there were shades, and with that in mind...
It was counter-attacking without breaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. And it was shades for me, as a Man United fan, of when Louis van Gaal was coaching, and I think it was Louis van Gaal, maybe it was David Moyes at that point, I forget. But it was the 2-2 draw with
one
Fulham,
of the glorious.
where they crossed for like 84 times in a game. It felt like that, where New York are sort of used to, we'll win the ball high up the pitch off of a center back or the defensive midfielder, and suddenly we've got 2 guys breaking, we've got the guy on the ball, we can kind of ping it around, or we can chip it in over the top, and somebody will be running on. It's a 1v1 battle. But when, as you said, you've got those 4 defenders just standing in front of you, now if you keep trying to do that, and I think the Red Bulls did, was these little chips and flicks and balls in behind, but...
trying to force it.
It's just not going to happen, and I think they didn't quite know how to adapt their game to suit what Chivas were doing, and so then it led to a bunch of chipped into the box, goal mouth scramble, cleared. Chipped into the box, goal mouth scramble, cleared.
It's just like if we keep doing the same thing, but we rush it and do it harder and just keep turning the volume up, eventually it's like a song that isn't really working, and the producer's decision in the studio is to just turn the volume up. Eventually it'll be a number 1.
Yeah,
You know
it should work, right? That's definitely how it works.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, I think it is the downside of playing the super high intensity, high press, play fast, win the ball, go to goal style, is that suddenly when that's not working, it's really difficult to be like, okay, everybody ratchet it down now. Like, let's slow it down. It's really tough to do, and you end up suffering for it, I think.
I want to say as well, if there's any New York Red Bulls fans who are sort of not enjoying the criticism of their team, I weirdly did enjoy this. I like seeing football like this, a sort of blood and thunder, and you can't question anybody's effort, and they're really determined to get it done. And I like the idea of teams playing in minute 1 as if it was the 90th minute. You know what I mean? I'm really into that idea, and I really enjoyed it. But I think in hindsight, they would have done a lot better with a plan B, which would either, for me, it should be either we become more of a slow build-up, don't rush the pass, draw them out, create a hole, then exploit that hole.
Yep.
Or maybe the press doesn't have to be immediate as soon as the other team has the ball. As soon as their left back has it, we don't all have to go and charge him, right? Maybe we can set the line of pressure at halfway.
Yeah.
That way we draw them out because they have to eventually come forward. Yeah. And then we win it back not quite as high up the field.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there just needed to be a plan B instead of keep turning the volume up.
Yeah, but I think they can feel pleased, maybe not pleased, but they can feel slightly okay with the idea that at least they didn't lose from a lack of effort.
Yeah.
And that is the worst thing of like losing a game and just knowing that like, we deserve to lose that
I'd say
one.
Chivas de Guadalajara won from a lack of effort.
Yeah, I think they did. And so I think that like there is that. I'm not trying to be critical of the Red Bulls then for like lack of effort or they just didn't do anything right on the night. I just think that at the end they couldn't adapt and they couldn't think, okay, this isn't working. Let's try to get some 2v1 situations happening. It just felt like it kind of kept being the same thing And I think it was probably a little bit out of panic, knowing the clock is ticking. We got to get something going. This could be the chance. Okay, this could be the chance. And I also think, final point here for me at least, is that if you're used to playing, like not used to, but if you have experience playing CONCACAF teams, specifically Liga MX teams, you're used to a much more like, oh boy, they're going to be coming at us. We got to be ready. And I imagine that suddenly it's like they're not coming at us at all. That can be strangely off-putting as well, and you don't quite know how to deal with that. And if your mentality is, look, they're going to be coming at us, they're going to want to win at home, we're going to get 1 or 2 chances this game, we got to take one of them if we want to make this happen, then when you're in front of goal with that one chance, you're going to take that shot and not recognize that, oh, we just had a shot before and we just had a shot after. Oh, we could take more. Let's calm it down. You're still going to be in that we've got one chance to make this happen mode.
The final thing I'd like to say, though, is I very much enjoyed this New York Red Bulls run through the CONCACAF Champions League.
I think that's why I'm so emotional right now.
Yeah, and I'm hoping they get to do it again because I enjoy watching this Red Bulls team. So I'm feeling critical of what they did last night. There were still some great individual performances in there. I really enjoyed what Long and Parker did, the centre-backs. Anytime Chivas did send the ball forward, they cleaned it up pretty fast. Right? But I do think Red Bulls just need a different arrow in their set of arrows. Quiver, that's the word. Yep. Yeah, where do you keep arrows?
I think it's only because I just watched a video making fun of Hawkeye. That's the only reason why I know that. But I will say...
Was it called The Avengers?
I think it was like Hawkeye is pointless. Something like that. It was a cracked article. But I will say, since you haven't mentioned him, I will do it for you. I did enjoy what Tyler Adams did, especially late in the game. I liked some charging runs, and it did feel like he was the one
who embodied what the Red Bulls are doing.
He was trying to do that, like, all right, fine, I will take that ball, I will drive at you, I will try to make something happen.
But it's almost like Tyler Adams always plays like that, and it seems like the Red Bulls have almost become an embodiment of Tyler Adams or vice versa.
Yeah.
And maybe they need someone to be a little calmer and and do a bit more playmaking instead. Like Kaku didn't come on Gamaro until later in the game. Maybe he should have started in hindsight.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good shout, which is why you're going to be Jesse Marsh's assistant next year in the Concacaf Champions League if they make it.
I'll be in charge of keeping his hair straight. Did you notice his hair sort of increasingly got sort of crazier as he got more frenzied throughout the game? And then he would like smooth it back down, but then it would go up again?
I did not, but I'm used to that phenomenon from having curly, semi-afro-y hair that if you run a hand through it once, it just stays straight up and I forget about it, and then I look ludicrous when I think I look cool.
But Jesse Marsh is more like the side part that should stay flat, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'll also say I actually genuinely have no idea how the next iteration of the CONCACAF Champions League works because it's that weird, like aren't like teams from 2 years ago making it and stuff like that? It's all very confusing.
Yes, I don't know if they're in or they're out.
No.
Let's hope they get another go though.
That works fine.
Okay, should we move on to the other semi-final?
We probably
so
should.
Chivas de Guadalajara make the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. There they will face Toronto Football Club. Toronto went to the Azteca, all the way up there.
I've heard of it.
To face Club America with a 3-1 lead, and I really thought this is going to be tough.
Yep.
They went 1-0 up after 12 minutes. They conceded a penalty right at the end, finished 1-1. This is a huge victory for Toronto Football Club, for Major League Soccer. I want to say for American teams, but Toronto's a Canadian team. But they did start the game with Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Maki Delgado, and Alex Bono in goal. And maybe some other Americans as well, who I'm not naming.
I'm going to say, looking at the lineup, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Americans, 2 Canadians, I think. There you go, yeah.
Yep. So 1-1, Toronto away to Club America. Let's talk first about Josie Altidore.
Let's do it.
He was starting this game. He was out after 6 minutes. I rewound because you can do that on Univision Deportes.
Must be nice.
He was limping from the kickoff. I saw from kickoff he took a little run, pulled up. He was in trouble. I believe have we learned that he got injured in the warm-up?
Yes, I think he rolled his ankle in the warm-up or twisted it. Should be good to go for this weekend, but I think basically it was that type of injury where it hurts a lot. You think, maybe I can play through it, adrenaline. Maybe there's an injection, who knows? And then it was just maybe too much for that moment.
So I think that made it even harder for Toronto, right? Because he's replaced by Toussaint Ricketts, who should have had an assist on Toronto's goal. Does not. He basically freezes, right?
Yes.
He freezes like T'Challa when he first sees the goal that he likes. You know what I'm saying? So instead of getting the assist, he gets tackled, and the tackle goes to Osorio to score. Toussaint Ricketts also got subbed out towards the end of this game.
He did.
He was replaced by Jordan Hamilton.
It's never a good thing.
Right at the end. So it's weirdly, even though he's involved in this massive sort of achievement for Toronto, it's a rough night for Toussaint Ricketts.
73 minutes, but subbed on and then off. Never a good thing. Can I say, though, I really enjoyed my viewing experience of game starts, then the feed is lost, comes back into Josie Altidore being subbed off. No idea why that happened. Feed is lost. So comes back into Toronto up 1-0. So that was great. That was when I officially called it quits with Go 90. So that was great.
It'd be better if it just didn't work at all, right?
It really would.
Bits then keep, because you keep thinking, oh, maybe it'll be fixed.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't. I want to give credit for this goal to Marky Delgado.
Let's do it.
With another clever little pass from Marky Delgado. So when the US beat Paraguay 1-0, it was Delgado's sort of weird long ball that Tyler Adams got in the end of to win that penalty kick. I think Marky Delgado might suddenly be the king of the weird passes. So
wait, wasn't that like deflected on, like cleared onto him and it went off of him? I'm emphasizing your point though. He is definitely the like. Somehow this came off of Marky Delgado and somehow it went to somebody who scored. Well done, him.
Well, for this goal, it's one of those weird standing foot passes that Delgado does. He kind of controls it with his right and then like stabs at it with his right again because he's seen Giovinco come and make some space. Then Giovinco does one of those clever, very clever chipped around the corner Giovinco passes to set Tosain Ricketts out down the line.
He's pretty good, the Giovinco fella.
Yeah, but that Delgado, you got to keep an eye on.
He's also decent.
You got to keep an eye on that Delgado. Another guy worth keeping an eye on, Alex Bono. I would argue we have done Alex Bono.
Go ahead and eat some crow here.
I think we've done him a disservice over the last couple US camps by just being like, oh, he's that Toronto guy. We probably won't see him. And we didn't, right? He hasn't played. But I don't think we've ever properly looked at him and thought about what is Alex Bono good at.
Yeah.
And I think last night was a good opportunity to do so.
Yep. Yeah. And what we learned was he is good at breaking Mexican hearts.
Yes. Oh, no. So the highlight that's doing the rounds is the Bono low save from there. I think it's pronounced Henry Martin diving header. I still don't quite understand how such a big man gets so low, so fast, and turns that ball around the post.
I mean, it's why goalkeeper training is insane. Like, it is so difficult and challenging, the stuff that goalkeepers go through to be physically fit and ready for the season. This is why, because you've got to have insane reflexes, insane core strength, insane flexibility.
Collapsible bones.
Collapsible bones also helps.
He was like a mouse going under the door.
If you're like a shark and most of you is cartilage, that helps. Is that a thing? I think that's a thing. I don't know. But I'm just saying, the bendier you are, the better you're going to be in goal.
Incredible. So doesn't he get a fist bump from Uribe Peralta?
He does. A like not even begrudging, but just sort of like, that was real good. Yeah. That was real good.
I'm glad I got to see that.
I'll give it up. Yeah.
Which probably, I'm thinking Peralta should not have done that because it gives Bono a bigger.
But it makes me like him all the more.
And then a thing I really enjoyed is Bono did a lot of the stuff where he would catch a ball or grab a ball and then he would fall to the floor with it and stay there for a good few seconds and essentially kill any of Club America's momentum, give his teammates time to breathe in and out, which is really important at the Azteca where oxygen is in short supply, and run the clock down, run those minutes down so that eventually, I mean, you got 2-goal lead, you know what I mean? Eventually you're going to run it down or run it up to 90 and your team goes through. That's what Alex Bono did. I think the term I used for it was a CONCACAF power nap. Because it wasn't like full cheating CONCACAFing, but it was also a bit of clever gamesmanship to run the clock down.
And what I was going to say is that's a skill. That is an actual skill, the ability to waste time without it being obvious to the point where you're booked. Because as soon as he's booked, he can't run the risk of doing that again. So to make it, checking he was never booked, so to make it that like, you got to do that little bit like, oh, I'm kind of jogging to get that ball. So like, oh, he's not just walking. He is, and you've got to maybe oversell the dive, even if you don't necessarily need to dive. But then you necessitate, because then you're laying on the ground. Oh, I got to get back up. I'm a little bit hurt. Oh, let me stretch that out. And
he made sure, and whenever he would catch a fairly easy ball, he would make sure he caught it kind of leaning forward so that the collapse of the floor seemed reasonably natural. Right? At least beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that is some excellent gamesmanship from Alex Bono. And again, it makes me think, maybe calling to camp was justified. Maybe I was a little bit dismissive.
It's a weird thing, right? Now we've seen some acrobatic saves from him. You start thinking of him in a higher category, which maybe isn't fair, right? Because he was maybe capable of that before, but we just hadn't noticed it before. I think goalkeepers are hard to judge, is what I'm saying.
No, we notice everything. It's never happened before. Now he's good. Happened in one night.
He's an overnight success.
Yep. And if you disagree, email Peyton@TotalSoccerShow.com.
I'm sure he never checks that email.
Nope. Even when he was on the show.
So congratulations to Toronto FC. Toronto will face Chivas de Guadalajara in the final. I believe Concacaf Champions League final is 2 legs.
It is TFC at home for the first leg, away for the second leg.
I'll be watching. Go on, Marky Delgado.
And I think that's been the case for them the past 2 fixtures as well, which means if TFC were to win the Concacaf Champions League, it meant they did so by going on the road for the second leg in 3 straight games. That is very impressive.
We haven't mentioned his name yet, but Michael Bradley
I've heard of him.
Was the Michael Bradley we know and love last night. He was at the base of the midfield in I believe it was like a 3-5-2 in the first half, and he was just behind Delgado and Osorio. In the second half, I think they did that thing where because Van der Veel came off, right? So they went to a back 4, and they did that thing where Bradley, in a good way, plays defensive midfield and drops between the centre-backs to be an extra defender. So he would form the back 3. Not in a moving the ball around, frustrating US men's national team kind of way, but in a I'm going to briefly play centre-back and really shut the shop kind of way. I thought Bradley was excellent last night.
I think he was excellent, and I think Greg Vanny, to your point about Gregory Van der Veel coming off in the 46th minute, that's 2 subs by halftime. At the Azteca, 8,000 feet, something like that. They did not make it easy to play there. I think laser pointers were still in abundance.
So a lot of green flashes.
Yeah, so I think with all of that, for Greg Vanny to basically have to deal with 2 injuries or premature substitutions, to only have 1 left for the rest of the second half and still get the result that he needed, I think that's definitely commendable as well.
All right, so well done to Toronto. We have done some match reviewing today.
We have.
How many games? 5 games all in?
Yeah. I mean, because we don't really count Bayern and Sevilla also happened.
No, 5.2 games. Yeah. Wow. That's a reminder to never take a day off again, because games keep happening even when we're not doing Total Soccer Show.
I think we were punished. That's what ended up. We were like, there's going to be nothing. We're fine. And then boom, boom, boom. Suddenly it happened. Stuff also happening with talented young players all around the world. You are not wrong, my friend, and we're going to start with the TSS Scouting Network and Doug Chan scouting Andrea Novakovic is what we've landed upon. 21-year-old / 15-year-old American striker on loan at SC Telstar from Reading. Novakovic was awarded the Bronze Bull for scoring the most goals during the league's 3rd period. That sounds confusing. That would be match weeks 17 to 24. So I guess they break it down into 4 periods. Who knows?
Eredivisie is weird.
It is. He celebrated the award by scoring his 19th league goal for Telstar in Monday's 3-2 win over FC Emmen. The Twitterverse believes that this win helps Telstar all but secure a second-round spot in the league's promotional playoffs.
All right, Novakovic. And if you didn't see Novakovic, he played for the US national team against Paraguay for 20-ish minutes. Yeah. Connor Siegel is scouting Brooks Lennon, the 20-year-old American right back for Real Salt Lake. Connor says RSL earned a hard-fought 2-1 win over Vancouver this past weekend. Brooks lined up for the 3rd straight week at right back. Got his first assist of the season when Luis Silva scored to give RSL a 1-0 lead, and then spent the second half in a battle of pace with Alphonso Davies, which 1, nicely illustrated his value in his new defensive role, and 2, earned Lennon his first 2018 MLS Team of the Week honours. I didn't know that. Well done, Brooks Lennon.
Indeed.
Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, I also enjoy that battle between Davies and Brooks Lennon. That's one that I would continue to watch. Logan Jurgens scouting Chris Muller, the 21-year-old American striker for Orlando City. We mentioned this earlier in the week. We did not get to the scouting report at the time. Chris Muller subbed on this past weekend with Orlando trailing Portland 2-0. In the 80th minute, he scored his first professional goal to help spark a dramatic 3-2 comeback.
Dom Dwyer helped afterwards.
Also that.
Andy Johnson is scouting Matt Real, the 18-year-old American left-back for the Philadelphia Union. Andy says that Matt Real made his second career start in the Union's 1-1 draw with the San Jose Earthquakes on April 7th. Created several chances on the wing and should have had an assist with a well-struck one-time cross.
Jake Lamar scouting...
Woulda, coulda, shoulda?
Yeah, there's a few of those in these reports today. Jake Lamar scouting Austin Trusty, 19-year-old American center back for the Philadelphia Union. Trusty started in that draw with San Jose. He was part of the second youngest backline in MLS history, as everyone had aged 1 week by then. He was pulled out of position during the Earthquakes' goal, but it would be tough to place the blame 100% on him, as the whole team lost focus during the attack. Overall, it was a much better performance than last week's 3-0 loss. #Trusty the process.
Love it. Jonathan Holmgren is scouting Foster Langsdorff, the 22-year-old American forward for the Portland Timbers. Langsdorff scored his first professional goal in T2's victory over the Oklahoma City Energy. Made a smart run from the near post to the far post and buried across with his right foot into the bottom left corner. He also drew the penalty that set up Portland's 3rd. So much for graduate degree scholarships.
So I guess he's going to be staying with Portland then?
I mean, if he keeps scoring, right?
I have a feeling Jonathan will keep us updated. In the meantime, Patrick Keeler scouting Anthony Robinson, the 20-year-old American left back on loan at Bolton from Everton.
An international substitute.
Also that. After a mysterious 5-game stretch where Anthony rode the bench, I believe that includes his time with the United States, he started and went the distance in Bolton's 3-0 thrashing by Derby County, meaning they lost 3-0. The good news for USMNT fans is that Anthony was not at fault for any of the goals, though that will not be much consolation for Bolton fans.
Wes Kaufman is scouting Ayo Akinyola, the 18-year-old American forward for Toronto FC 2. Akinyola got his first minutes of the season last Saturday, coming off the bench against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. He looked lively, showcasing bursts of pace and physicality, but wasn't able to help his team, who ended up losing 4-0.
Eesh.
That's what happens when you go up against Hugh Roberts.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. George Nisbet scouting Pablo Maffeo, the 20-year-old right wingback for Girona. Pablo was a starter on Sunday against Real Sociedad. He had several good attacking moments, but was subbed off in the 68th minute with Girona down 2-0. That might end up being a good thing as they went on to lose 5-0.
So he's less than 50% to blame.
Yeah.
Will Herson is scouting Ryan Sessegnon, the 17-year-old English left-sider, that's a good description, for Fulham. Will says Ryan was dropped by the England U19s, but was then selected for the U21s. I believe that's a promotion. Making his debut at left-back against Ukraine. For Fulham, he has 2 assists in their last 4 games and has been part of their 19-game unbeaten streak in the league.
Watch out, Wolves.
I believe John Tolbert should have been at the most recent Fulham game.
We await his report.
He should have been at the Wolves game where Ruben Neves scored that goal.
Ooh, that would be more exciting. And while Daryl checks to see if Wolverhampton have been promoted, I will just say thank you to Doug, Connor, Logan, Andy, Jake, Jonathan, Patrick, Wes, George, and Will for those scouting reports. We had many other scouting reports. We will get to them on tomorrow's show because we have gone quite long today. Daryl, what say the championship standings?
I'm not very good at the math.
Okay.
But, so 4 games to play, and Wolves are 12 points clear of promotion, 12 points clear of third place.
Yeah.
So that's not quite enough, right?
Not quite enough.
No,
basically,
point.
You're there. But if nothing else, you've secured playoff spots, so that's good.
I do not have any intention of watching the Wolverhampton Wanderers in the playoffs. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But seriously, go watch that Ruben Neves goal if you haven't seen it, listeners. It is something else.
It is the equivalent of a player getting bored. Like if you take over a FIFA team and you're in like the championship and you're waiting to get promoted to the Premier League, that's what you do when you're bored. It's like we've won enough games. I'm just going to flick this up to myself and volley it in from 40 yards out just because I can.
Oh, hopefully so much more Wolves talk on the Total Soccer Show next season.
Yeah,
and not talking about them getting dismantled by teams like Manchester City, hopefully.
I didn't even think about what thumbs up, thumbs down is going to be every week.
It's going to be all orange.
It's going to be my penance for talking about Man United for the last 5 years.
Well, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I've really enjoyed our sort of romp through the various Champions League games.
As have I, my friend, as have I.
Listeners, I hope you also enjoyed. We'll be back tomorrow to maybe talk a little more Champions League. We'll probably do some US soccer updates. There's been some stuff happening. And we'll do some listener questions. Until then, goodbye.
Slice it.